A secret kept too long begins to rot the keeper from within. The weight of what we allowed is a stone we must now carry forward. The choice is made, and the door swings shut behind us. These are the names of the worthless scum who got swayed by the vile tricks of the Geoghan dogs. These bastards dared to betray the grace of Lord Seol, Branch Lord Cheon. Yes, sir. If you had arrived even slightly later than Han Seol, everyone around you, including yourself, would have died today. Cheon Eojin swallowed hard. And Han Seol over there would have taken your place. Seol Unwi reached out his hand toward the trembling Cheon Eojin. Han Seol, you should have something for me as well. Of course, Dian. Han Seol immediately stepped forward and handed Unwi a tightly rolled scroll. Unwi unfolded the two sheets and began reading through them line by line. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Not bad at all. Thank you, Dian. Unwi quietly set the two sheets aside and spoke briefly. Branch Lord Cheon, yes. Did I look like a fool to you? No, absolutely not. And yet it took you 2 full shijin. You must have weighed the offer from Geoghan. Were you tempted? Cheon Eojin swallowed again. Seol Unwi. From the very beginning, he hadn't seemed like someone to take lightly, but his insight now seemed to dwell in the heavens. How could a man be this cold and clear-headed? Whatever offer they made, it must have been tempting. That's why it took you so long to decide. But I suppose it took a little longer to realize the one thing you'd been overlooking. Cheon Eojin raised his trembling head. Do I need to keep reminding you that your life hangs by a thread in my hands? No. No, sir. Do I need to explain to you one by one why I took your signed life guarantee? Absolutely not. Then can I trust that something like this will never happen again? Cheon Eojin dropped to the floor in a prostrated bow. Of course, I would never betray Lord Seol. Please believe me. I believe you. Cheon Eojin looked up with a visibly brightened expression. How many warriors can the Cheonha Merchant Guild mobilize immediately? 20 warriors from the Yonggi Sajong. We don't have any from Ajijuwan, but we have 2 from Samwisi Hwajang. What about the Shin Samjong? 80, sir. 20 and 80, 100 total. Of course, I'll provide them right away. Certainly, not immediately. I'll need them in about 4 shijin, have them prepared in advance. Yes, I'll make the arrangements, Dian. You may go. Understood. With that, Cheon Eojin left. Han Seol, who had remained behind, gave a faint smile. Indeed, Lord Seol's insight surpasses even what I could dare predict. Is that a compliment? It's admiration. The situation was simple. The Geoghan faction had undoubtedly made contact with the sects in Yangryong. From Unwi's perspective, it was inevitable. Since the territories of Geoghan and Yangryong weren't connected, they had planted agents. Though called agents, it was closer to co-opting them. They needed information about the area, and they needed to prepare a response. If they intended to swallow Yangryong entirely under the name of the Sashan Alliance, then it was the logical move. So then, which sects had they approached? That still needed investigation, but at least one of them had to be the Cheonha Merchant Guild. It would have made things easier for Geoghan. And indeed, Cheon Eojin had hesitated. He's a snake of a man. Geoghan promised to hand over all of Yangryong to the Cheonha Guild. And as soon as he heard that, Cheon Eojin drafted a list of the sects Geoghan had approached. Originally, he wasn't planning to give it to you. He meant to use it as a shield depending on how the battle went. But this time, his calculation was quicker. You were there when it happened. I wasn't, but someone I placed nearby was. He reported it to me. The facts have been cross-checked, so there's no need to doubt their authenticity. Unwi gave a curious smile. You must be a little disappointed. Me? You could have devoured the entire Cheonha Guild. Didn't you have to postpone that? Han Seol chuckled. It's fine. As you well know, Dian, there's a right time for everything. I agree. Han Seol was certainly a capable man, too capable to be stuck in a place like this. Surely you intend to erase Geoghan from the world? Unwi nodded. If there's anything I can do, please tell me. Unwi shook his head and picked up the paper Han Seol had handed him. This alone is more than enough help. You flatter me. Han Seol was certain. The sects listed on that paper would be erased from the world. It was simple. It was one thing for the Geoghan faction to make contact. Even without Unwi, that much could be understood. But the real issue came afterward. If they failed to report Geoghan's approach to Unwi, it meant they had not merely hesitated. They had made their decision. There was a reason Cheon Eojin had rushed in like a madman and thrown himself to the ground. Han Seol, silent for a while, finally spoke in a calm voice. It seems there are still many who don't understand the situation. You think so too? Yes. Their perspective has changed, and so has what they see. And I'm just a merchant. I can't take on something grand, but at the very least, when it comes to mining operations, you have nothing to worry about. That part I can promise you, Unwi nodded. I believe you. Thank Novelight. Also, summon all the sect leaders of Yangryong to the Yangryong Hall. The time will be, Unwi thought for a moment, then spoke shortly, 4 Shijin from now. Yes, I'll make sure the message is delivered. You may go now. Han Seokyeon respectfully offered a martial salute and returned to the Chenham Merchant Guild. Left alone, Unwi slowly raised his head and looked up at the sky. He didn't know how long it had been. He had always said that Chief Steward Seong was important to him, but he hadn't known to what degree. But seeing him lying there like that, he realized it. He closed his eyes and sank into thought. How should he act from here on? What was the best path to take? Geogan and Ilmun Samgarijeng. Would it be right to erase the city of Geogan itself from this world? Or was it better to erase just the Ilmun Samgarijeng? Either way, every one of the warriors who had entered Yangryong 5 days ago would die. No, he would kill them. Yangso operated the Iron Mountain Sword sect and resided in Seolap. He could have relocated to Yangryong. He could have claimed the finest location, where the now-defunct Juryeong Sword sect once stood, but he didn't. He chose to grow his strength and hone his martial arts in Seolap, and now he had reached the level of Ajijuwan. Ignoring the favor he had received from Unwi as a martial artist was unthinkable. To put it bluntly, even if he wouldn't die on command, he'd at least pretend to. If strength was needed, he was ready to rush over at a moment's notice, anytime. So the moment he received the letter from Yangryong, he moved. He first selected 20 warriors from the Iron Mountain Sword sect. There wasn't a single Samwa Chwijang among them, but 5 were Yangguang Aihyun and 2 were Oryang Bongxiang. All of them had joined after hearing of Yang So's renown upon reaching Ajijuwan. They were promising talents from the sect. He brought them all to Yangryong. Naturally, as they entered the Yangryong branch, the warriors of the Iron Mountain Sword sect held their breath. At the threshold of the hall under the eaves sat a man, his forehead covered by one hand. He was alone. There wasn't a single guard in sight, yet the air was unbearably heavy. Even breathing was difficult. That weight, intangible yet suffocating, pressed down on every warrior present. It wasn't mere pressure. It was as if the sky had collapsed, as if a mountain bore down on their backs. The gathered warriors realized the insignificance of their own existence simply by sensing his presence. Overwhelming. That word alone could capture it all, like a crouching dragon, a storm lying dormant, poised to explode. Even Yang So, who had reached Ajijuwan, was speechless. There was nothing more to say. He could only bow his head in silence. This man was Cheon Eojin, the master of Yangryong. He moved slowly. The fingers shielding his face trembled ever so slightly. Yang So. His voice was soft, but it echoed through the hall like thunder. At that call, Yang So immediately offered a martial salute. Cold sweat rolled down his back. Yes, Dean. Is your blade well honed? It was a simple question, but everyone knew what it meant. Blood would be spilled today. Of course. Unwi slowly lifted his head. The hand that had been covering his face lowered gently, revealing his eyes. Eyes that burned like a primordial beast hunting its prey. Confronted with that gaze, Yang So couldn't say a word. I'll be using your blade today. There was no doubt about it. Countless lives would be severed today. Once again, the Yangryong Hall trembled. All the sect leaders of Yangryong's most prominent factions had gathered. It was the second time since Unwi had taken control of Yangryong. Yet despite being the second, the atmosphere was even heavier than the first. As it should be. The 14 severed heads hanging at Yangryong's main gate did not belong to ordinary men. They were members of the Iron Name Pavilion's 3rd Squad, one of the Sashan Alliance's elite strike forces, including their squad captain. More had died in truth, but only 14 heads could be hung. What could you do with heads that had been completely smashed to pulp? You couldn't even display them. This time, the Sashan Alliance and Everlasting Snow Palace might really go to war, said Jin Horan, head of Akko sect. More than 30 men and women fell silent. That's how serious the situation was. So why had the master of Yangryong called them here? Thinking rationally, there was only one thing the Yangryong branch lord should do: apologize. After all, he had promised to protect them. How had the entire region been thrown into danger? Even if he had made a name for himself by shaking the martial world with a game of Go, wrong was still wrong. It had only been 5 days. 5 days ago, hundreds of Geogan's warriors had stormed into Yangryong. In that moment, everyone's lives had been in their hands, and who had brought things to that point? Seol Unwi. It was only right that he apologize. though truthfully, there were already those who had made up their minds, regardless of whether he did or not. Jin Horan, sect leader of Akko sect, who had spoken earlier, met eyes with Yeon Ungak, head of the Yeon clan, across the hall. Yeon Ungak gave a slight nod, and after briefly locking eyes with several other sect leaders, Jin Horan opened his mouth to speak. This is truly unacceptable. Lord Seol promised to protect us, yet when we were actually in danger, where was he? That statement was picked up by Yeon Ungak. He's right. Lord Seol was absent, and during that time, Yangryong nearly became a scorched ruin. This is entirely Lord Seol's fault. It is only proper that we demand an apology from him today. The few sect leaders who had met Jin Horan's gaze earlier jumped in to agree, fanning the flames of discontent. Strangely, within the gathering that Unwi himself had convened, a laughable situation had unfolded where he was being openly condemned. But it didn't last long. Dozens of men and women surged into the annex hall where the sect leaders were gathered and immediately surrounded them. The sect leaders of Yangryong looked around in alarm, then all eyes fell on one man. He was walking slowly, step by step, and somehow those steps echoed like thunder. Seol Unwi, the master of Yangryong. Jin Horan swallowed hard and spoke. "Lord Seol, was this gathering meant for you to offer an apology?" Unwi didn't respond with words. The moment he saw Jin Horan, he drove his foot straight into the man's solar plexus. Thwack, with the sound of impact, Jin Horan was sent sprawling backward. He was too stunned to do anything. Before he could even reach for a weapon, Unwi's silent, chilling gaze pierced straight through his heart. A flash of movement streaked through the air. Slice! Jin Horan's neck was split clean in two. The list had already been acquired. Cross-verification was complete. Unwi's gaze shifted. There stood Yeon Ungak of the Yeon clan. "What did Ijijeom of Jeogan promise you?" "That, well, you had a path to survival." He began approaching. The closer he got, the more Yeon Ungak backed away, but it was meaningless. "I've been in Yangryong for 4 full shijin now. You didn't bother to make a single excuse." Lord Seol, you thought I wouldn't know. Please spare me. It's too late." Before he even finished speaking, Yeon Ungak drew his sword. And novelite in that instant, the world before him turned to white. Chinseoljais. Crystals of frost materialized midair, freezing over Yeon Ungak's sword. While he stood frozen in panic, thunk. Unwi drove his blade into the man's chest. "Did the Sashan Alliance's backing look that solid to you? Cock, that's. Become a ghost and watch. See for yourself who's truly stronger." He yanked the sword out. Blood spurted high, he swung. Slice! Yeon Ungak's head shot skyward. Unwi shifted his gaze again. He saw the terrified faces of the remaining sect leaders. Staring at them, he spoke in a steady, solemn tone. "Other than the Tanghua sect, the Yi clan, the Han clan, and the IM family stronghold, no one is to move from their spot. The moment you twitch, your head will roll with them." No sooner had he finished speaking than the heads of the 4 named factions dropped to their knees. Please spare me. I swear I had no intention of betraying you. I only hesitated. I was going to refuse. I was planning to report it to you right away. I am Sang from the IM family stronghold. No, this is a misunderstanding. They did approach me, but I was just about to tell you. Today, yes, I was going to report it today. That's the truth. In the name of the Han clan, I say the same. They did reach out, yes, but I haven't done anything yet. Those 2 who died stirred everything up. A small laugh escaped Unwi's lips. "So what comes after just that? You went along with them, stirred the crowd, denounced your branch lord. Sowed division. And then what? Pathetic. I already intend to kill all of you, and all you can offer are excuses." Before I Am Sang could do anything, Unwi's left hand shot out like lightning and seized him by the throat. "Disappear. Please, SB," he squeezed without mercy. Crunch, he tossed the dead body aside and looked toward the Tanghua sect's leader. His name was Ju Junhyun. Unwi's eyes flared. Absolute ice ghost void sword. A flash of a blade severed Ju Junhyun's neck. Slice. His head flew upward. Before it could even hit the ground, Unwi charged toward Han Akryong, head of the Han clan. She panicked and raised her sword, but Chaang. Her blade flew into the air, and Unwi brought his sword down on her empty, exposed head. Slice! With a wet crack of flesh and bone, her body split cleanly in 2. He turned his head. The last remaining leader, Yejiak of the Yi clan, was collapsed in terror, begging for his life. Unwi wordlessly stepped forward and swung. Slice! Yejiak's head thudded to the floor. In the silence that followed, Unwi stabbed his sword into the ground. "Yang So. Yes, branch lord. Did you memorize the factions those men belonged to?" "Of course." Ako sect, Yong clan, Tangwa sect, Yi clan, Han clan, I am stronghold. 6 in total. There should be about 50 warriors waiting outside. Their leader is a man named Han Seok-hyun. Work with him and wipe those 6 factions off the face of the earth. Yang So asked, is there anyone who should be spared? Unwi glanced at the kneeling sect leaders and gave a curt reply. No, kill them all. Not just the bloodline, leave not even a single ant alive. Yang So raised his voice with pride. Understood. After Yang So left, silence returned to the Yongryong Hall Annex. No one could have imagined it. That Unwi would respond like this. They had honestly expected an apology, not as a joke, but because it simply made sense. At least in the world they lived in, that's how things were supposed to work. Only one man had thought otherwise. That's why he was still alive now. Even if he had hesitated, even if he had slithered about like a snake from place to place, he had the brain to realize where true benefit lay. Still trembling, Cheon Eojin grasped the situation correctly once again. And so he immediately prostrated himself in a full kowtow. Unwi looked at him and spoke quietly. How unfortunate. Ako sect and the Yong clan, they were factions I trusted enough to grant them mining rights. Now they're traitors doomed to be erased. How truly unfortunate. Somewhere, someone audibly swallowed. They said something amusing, that I owe them an apology. Judging from your expressions, you all must have thought the same as those foolish bastards. Unwi didn't smile. He didn't even feel like smiling. 1 month ago, all of you signed the life contract I offered, and yet it seems you don't understand what it means. Let me explain it for you. So he decided to be generous, to explain clearly. I am the one protecting you, and if I fall, everlasting Snow Palace will protect you. But shouldn't you also consider the reverse? Reverse? Someone muttered faintly, but Unwi didn't bother to reply. If, and it's a big if, everlasting Snow Palace is destroyed, then all of you who signed that contract will also be destroyed. Gasp. To share fate until the end, that's the meaning of the life contract. Just as I, the owner of the contract, have gained both rights and obligations, so too have all of you who signed it. He looked back to Cheon Eojin. Branch Lord Cheon at least understood that. Though belated, he made the right decision. That's why he's still alive. I am simply overwhelmed by your mercy, Dian. It was true that Cheon Eojin had wavered. He had wondered whether to side with the Sashan Alliance or with Unwi. He chose the latter, because he genuinely didn't want to become Unwi's enemy. Even if he allied with the Sashan Alliance, Unwi would surely exact revenge. That's what he feared. In his entire life, he had never met anyone as cold and terrifying as this man. A short while ago, there were fools who dared to challenge my authority. Members of the Iron Name Pavilion's 3rd Squad from the Sashan Alliance. Their heads now hang at the main gate. Soon, dozens more heads will hang beside them. Fortunately, it seems none of those will belong to anyone in this room. Everyone looked up at Unwi. Mark this well. If I die, you die. If everlasting Snow Palace collapses, you collapse. You must decide for yourselves what is right. And now, Shin Janghu, a middle-aged man sitting quietly in a corner, raised his head. Your Shin clan reportedly helped defend Yongryong against the Geogan invaders. Is that true? ... It's exaggerated. I merely stood beside them and raised my sword. Humble. Thank you. As the master of Yongryong, I intend to reward you. Shin Janghu blinked, caught off guard. You know Ako sect and the Yong clan were involved in the mining operations. I'm thinking of giving your clan a chance. What do you say? His eyes sparkled. If you entrust it to me, I will give it everything I have. Then fill their places. Excuse me? 6 factions were wiped out today. Their wealth, influence, trade, all of it will go to you. Shin Janghu shot to his feet in shock. It wasn't a joke. That much was enough to immediately propel his clan to prominence in Yongryong. In an instant, he had become the head of a great faction under Unwi's protection. Dozens of warriors looked at him with envy, but it meant nothing. Unlike them, Shin Janghu had acted. That's what mattered. Absorb it all within 4 days. I will, no matter what. And make time tomorrow to visit the branch headquarters. I'll grant you martial arts befitting your new station. Shin Janghu was practically overcome with joy. As a martial artist, and as someone who understood the suffering of Yongryong's enforcers, he had made his choice. He had never imagined it would be repaid like this. Anyone else have something to say? No, Dian. Unwi drew his sword and sheathed it in its scabbard. Today's tab will be paid by Cheon Eojin. Anyone who's thirsty for a drink, help yourself before you leave. And Shin Janghu. Why yes, Branch Lord. No, Dihyop. From now on, you'd best move quickly if you want things to go smoothly. You're right, Dihyop. I'll come to the branch headquarters tomorrow without fail. With that, Shin Jianghu departed from Yangryong Hall faster than anyone else. Unwi lingered a moment, quietly sweeping his gaze over the remaining sect leaders before turning away without a word. They had witnessed it with their own eyes, how rewards and punishments were distributed. This was basic common sense. What's the first thing one must do when starting a war? Discipline the interior. That's where it begins. As he stepped outside, Unwi lifted his head. Raindrops were falling from the sky. Yangryong was a place of extremely capricious weather. It was heavily affected by the massive snow-capped mountains nearby, but that didn't mean it only snowed. Sometimes, like now, it rained. This rain would, at least a little, wash away the blood of Yangryong. The light drizzle had turned into a torrential downpour. Thunder boomed loud enough to tear the sky apart, and the world was suddenly bathed in shades of gray. Yasekmyeong, the chief supervisor of the Yom clan's trade caravan, muttered as he shook the water off. For those leading trade convoys, rain was a disaster. Mountain paths became mud, cargo got soaked, and visibility worsened. Naturally, everything slowed down, and with that came danger. There was no avoiding it. We'll rest here. Set up the tents. At Yasekmyeong's order, the merchants and porters quickly got to work. And what was the Yom clan? One of the core factions of Jeogan. Whenever they sent out a caravan like this, elite martial escorts were assigned without fail. Even amid the heavy rain, the 4 warriors standing tall retained their aura. They were the elite. The strongest among them was of Samwasi Hwajang rank. One was Oryang Bangxiang, and 2 were Yangguang Aihyun. This was a true elite squad, and beneath them were around 20 Shinsam Jeong rank warriors. Combined with porters, regular escorts, and merchants, the convoy numbered over 100. Yang Ilmun, the Samwasi Hwajang master, was in a foul mood. "Damn it," he spat as he glared up at the sky. "To think we're delayed because of this pathetic rain." And then he heard it, footsteps cutting through the downpour. At first the sound was buried in the rain, but gradually it grew louder and clearer. Yang Ilmun narrowed his eyes and furrowed his brows. 4 figures in black hats. Through the sheets of rain, one man at the front stood out, immense in size. His face bore a sly grin, and his towering height neared 7 chiak. Rain ran down his broad shoulders as he walked, and each step seemed to shake the earth. The 3 behind him were each distinct. One was a slim woman. Another wore a cloth covering half her face. The last was a young man whose eyes gleamed with murderous intent. Yasekmyeong stepped forward. "Who are you people?" The giant opened his mouth. "Are you Yasekmyeong?" "That's right. The chief supervisor of the Yom clan?" I said yes, now identify yourselves. The giant grinned wider. "We've come from Yangryong." Yasekmyeong's eyes went wide. "Yangryong? You mean from the everlasting snow palace's Yangryong?" The man's laughter rang out through the downpour. "You know it well, that's the one. I am Chinpeng, sub-branch lord of the Yangryong division." At that, the woman wearing the cloth slapped Chinpeng's shoulder. "Hey, you, how can you just blurt that out now? Are you insane? Now, mind your language. Screw language, you big idiot. What's there to worry about? What? We're going to kill them all anyway." Chinpeng's chilling gaze pierced into Yasekmyeong's chest. His heart dropped like a stone. Shit. This one was real. "Well, that's just how life goes, isn't it? Still, I'm a man of some conscience, so I'll explain first. A few days ago, Jeogan's martial artists invaded Yangryong and caused all kinds of chaos. If I or our branch lord had been present, such nonsense never would have happened. What do they call it again? When the tiger's gone, the fox plays king. Something like that? Anyway, we've come to collect the debt." Yang Ilmun, the Samwasi Hwajang master, stepped forward. "I've heard enough. This is your final warning. Get lost or... Shut your damned mouth, you dog, who gave a slave the right to butt into grown men's business." Chinpeng unslung the massive sword from his back and charged forward. Yang Ilmun was taken aback. "Slave? Did he just call me a slave?" That quickly turned into rage. He drew his blade and swung without hesitation. The Yom clan was known for 3 key martial techniques. Among them, Yang Ilmun had mastered the flame flower blade, a technique of overwhelming power. He swung with devastating force toward Chinpeng, and Chinpeng responded by swinging his own massive sword. Krang. Steel clashed midair with an explosive shockwave. Rain burst in all directions. Chinpeng was pushed back a step, while Yang Ilmun was lifted clean off his feet, retreating nearly 4 steps. His eyes trembled violently. Well, you're a slave who knows how to swing a blade. Who are you calling a slave?" Chinpeng smirked and spoke softly. "Kill them all." It was an order to the branch members. The moment he said it, a woman brushed past him. Through the thin cloth veil, her sharp eyes locked onto Yang Ilmun. "Who are why?" That became his final words. The sword Jusoa had drawn was thinner and longer than a standard sword. It looked almost like a whip sword, but it was a blade. Her legs sprang, her wrist flicked, and the sword began to dance like a living serpent. Ghost Serpent Soul-Severing Sword, secret technique of the Killing Sword sect. Slice. Yang Ilmun's head soared through the air. Jusoa didn't stop. Two more martial artists stood across from her Oryang Bangsiang level. She dashed forward again. Rain splashed as her form elongated in motion. Slice, slice. Both their heads flew skyward. The remaining Yangguangaihyun warrior was paralyzed with fear. He could tell at a glance. He didn't stand a chance. He had to run. As he turned to flee, there was someone faster. Something appeared that should not exist in this storm. A black flame, demonic flame, Maha. A man cloaked in that flame swung his blade. The terrified warrior jerked back. He thought he dodged. But as he leapt backward, the black-flamed man, N-O-V-Y-L-I-G-H-T, exclusive on N-O-V-Y-L-I-G-H-T, sprang after him. With every step he took, demonic flame erupted from the ground. He recognized it. It was a footwork art, returning flame phantom step of Hondo Demon Flame Palace, a demonic sect from Sama's outer factions. Horrified, he tried to scream, but Han Murin's blade pierced his forehead. Thunk. It trembled violently, then boom, his head exploded. Han Murin turned coldly. There were still many enemies in view. She would kill them all. While she continued her slaughter, another woman was facing off against 5 warriors. Her blade moved in slow, circular arcs. It was the first form of the Chenggu sword technique Unwi had crafted. Wanyang dashed forward. 2 warriors swung at her, but her blade slipped between theirs. Slice. One lost his head, and as her sword twisted like a dancing arc through the air, it slit the other's throat. Azure Wing returns to heaven, Chenggu Hoachin. She ducked low, just in time, as a blade grazed over her head. She tilted her sword sideways like a bird spreading its wings, as if preparing to take flight. Then she thrust. It pierced through the heart of the warrior who had swung at her. Soaring wing pierces frost, Biak Chinsang. Her gaze deepened. She pulled the blade from his heart and dashed again. 2 more warriors. She saw their swords, their muscles. She read everything. In an instant, she found the optimal path and slipped between them. Schlick, schlick. Their swords only grazed the edge of her robe. That was all. Her blade traced the air like 2 swallows in flight. One aimed for the throat, the other for the gut. They tried to guard, slice, thunk. Both neck and abdomen were pierced, boom. They exploded. She had blended the final form of Chenggu sword technique, twin swallows in flight, Yuyon S. Sanghing, with unwise, heaven-slaying wolf fang strike. Wanyang's gaze shifted. She bore no personal grudge against them. But this had to be done. Just as Unwi said, they had sinned. Responsibility wasn't only the branch lord's burden. The branch members bore it too. And so she had to do what ordinary people wouldn't. She had to take responsibility. These were one of the Geogan-affiliated sects that had infiltrated Yangryong. They all had to die. Killing them, all of them, was the only answer. K-R-A-G. A warrior struck by Chenpeng's greatsword flew toward Wanyang's side. His body was mashed to pulp, savage strength as always. Wanyang immediately dashed toward another group of enemies. Slice, slice. Necks and limbs were severed without pause. Cries rang out, "Run, spare me." But amid the chaos, one man walked forward with a grin. It was Chenpeng. And each step he took, Yesikmyeong backed away. "Please, spare me." Chenpeng only smiled. "There's no way you can kill us all. There's only 4 of you. How can 4 people kill over 100? Not to mention there's a torrential storm. This is impossible. And so, I just want to live, that's all." Chenpeng shook his head. "I sit in a seat of responsibility as sub-branch lord, and you're the chief supervisor, aren't you? Then you should take responsibility too. Why try to squirm out alone, you bastard?" Chenpeng reached out and grabbed Yesikmyeong's head. "You know our branch lord always says something when he kills people. What was it? Something like, if there's an afterlife, no, become a ghost and watch, was that it?" As if recalling it, Chenpeng broke into a wide smile. "Don't worry, I'll be sending some others after you soon, so go on ahead." Chenpeng's grip tightened. Splat. Yesikmyeong's head was crushed in an instant. Chenpeng rose to his feet and shouted, "Stop killing. Regroup," just as Yesikmyeong had said. They'd killed more than 2/3, but not everyone. The sheer number aside, with the weather in such a state, there were bound to be survivors, but that was fine. After all, the goal from the start was to ruin the caravan. Chenpeng pulled out the dusk token he'd received from Unwi and stuffed anything of value from the wagon into it. Unwi had ordered the deaths of 100, but he had no intention of stopping at 100. The current time was Chuxi. between 1 and 3 a.m., and by today's noon, a total of 7 caravans were scheduled to pass through Jeogan into the inner region. Of those 7, 1 had a tangled route and could be skipped, which left 6. The plan was to annihilate all 6 caravans passing today. 1 was already destroyed. That left 5. Let's head to the next. Jusoa, who had been washing the blood off her face in the rain, let out a faint laugh. Look at the bear bastard acting all gallant now. As if prearranged, the Bunta members began moving toward their next destination. Soon, Jeogan would come to understand what kind of wrath came with crossing the Yangryong Bunta lord, Seol Unwi. Seol Unwi headed toward the Bunta compound. He entered naturally, passed through the training grounds, and was on his way to the inner quarters when, Lord, a man came running toward him, hair flying. Though too clean to be a true beggar, the man was Jang Seok, the current branch chief of Beggars' Union in Yangryong. He pulled out a tightly rolled scroll from his robes and handed it to Unwi. This seemed urgent, so I compiled and brought it immediately. Unwi took the scroll and nodded. You've done well. He read through the scroll on the spot. Partway through, his eyes stopped on a particular line. At the same time, Jang Seok began to speak. This was added in a rush to the intel your Bunta members recovered. This man is. There, yes. Unwi let out a short sigh and said curtly, I'll pay for the intel after the situation is resolved. There's no need, sir. You don't have to pay. Unwi glanced at him with a questioning look. I'd like to form a deeper relationship with you, Lord. Think of this as a gesture of sincerity. A gesture, huh? Fine, I'll accept it that way. I'll take my leave then. Jang Seok turned and left, and Unwi sat under the edge of the eaves. In that brief moment, Unwi's brow furrowed. So many guests today. A man was descending from the sky. His feet touched the ground, but made only the faintest sound. Seohio of Chenrim. He gave Unwi a respectful cupped fist salute. It's been a while, young master. Unwi gave a nod, prompting Seohio to smile. How cold. After so long, you won't even greet me? Unwi gave a faint smirk. How have you been? Quite well, truly. I'm sure you've been well too, though regrettably it seems there's been trouble. You must have seen it on your way here. Why ask? The corpses of Sashan Alliance members were on full display, and the blood-soaked wind that had swept through Yangryong was still raging. Wherever he had come from, Seohio surely saw it. So what brings you here? Straight to business, as expected. Got a problem with that? Not at all. Seohio quietly sat beside Unwi, starting with internal purges. You really are exceptional, to think you'd pick a fight with both Jeogan and the Sashan Alliance. Remarkable. Unwi stared at him in silence. But there's one thing you're probably wondering. A question? Yes. For example, you might be wondering how things stand in Shinsamgak right now. It wasn't a wrong assumption. Though Unwi now ruled over Yangryong, it was still only Yangryong. No matter how famed he'd become through the game of Go, that alone didn't extend his reach. Especially when it came to what was happening inside Shinsamgak, Unwi truly didn't know. And the question Seohio was pointing out was exactly what had been sitting in the back of Unwi's mind. It had been 5 days since the sects of Jeogan entered Yangryong. He had a clear grasp on what they'd done here, but not what they'd done before or what they were doing now. Chances were they were managing affairs in Shinsamgak. But how? In what way? He didn't know. Your guess is correct. Lee Jakium of Jeogan redirected all of Shinsamgak's mining quota, originally allocated to Yangryong, back to Jeogan. The Padman? You know better than anyone. That old man doesn't care who's mining what. He might not care, but it didn't mean the rules of Padman could be ignored. More importantly, Bongni and Saryang? Before I answer, are we still friends? For now, yes. Then we will remain friends. I'll answer your question. Bongni's quota has been halved. Saryang's entire quota has been handed over to sects under the Sashan Alliance. What about the Shinsamgak Merchants League? Seohio smiled softly. It's been disbanded. Unfortunately, that means one of my cover identities, Chief Negotiator, has gone up in smoke. Well, that's too bad. Unwi's dry remark drew a hearty laugh from Seohio. Seohio wasn't someone who laughed easily, but for some reason, conversations with Unwi always made him laugh more. Maybe it wasn't just similarity in thinking, but the fact that he'd glimpsed someone even greater, and being treated with respect on top of that made it all the more enjoyable. I suspect I'm the only one in this world who can guess what you're plotting. Only one, huh? Confidence in yourself is admirable, but surely you understand. No matter how high you run, there are always those flying even higher. That's true. I wouldn't deny it, but in the current situation, predicting what you'll do, that I alone can do. A faint smile touched Unwi's lips. Interesting. Oh, but don't tell me to guess out loud. If I say it first, it won't be fun. So you came to propose a deal, didn't you? Exactly. Unwi's gaze sharpened. What do you want? Cheongsu Village, his expression twitched. And what are you offering in return? I'll give you half the profits from the black market. Unwi's gaze turned cold. When you say Cheongsu Village, you don't mean just controlling it. You mean the land itself. Am I right? I am. I plan to station Chinrim personnel there to handle security. Of course, to protect the black market. Seol smiled faintly. Of course, only the black market. Seol. Yes, young master. Do I look like a fool to you? Surprisingly, Seol kept smiling. You know it's just a proposal. Now I'd like to hear your terms. My terms, huh? Unwi's calm eyes locked onto Seol. Withdraw from Cheongsu Village. Pardon. If that place isn't cleared before sunrise, I'll slaughter everyone there. I'll burn down the warehouse, and if that's not enough, I'll bring down the entire cave. If you understand, get out of my sight. Unwi began to rise, but stopped at Seol's next action. My apologies. I sincerely apologize for the disrespect. Seol. Yes, young master. I don't like games. If you know what I'm planning, then you should know talk like that means nothing. It wastes time, wastes manpower, and wastes my time. Do you have anything else to say? Seol scratched his head. Once more, I apologize, but it's truly an urgent matter for me, so I had no choice. There's no such thing as no choice. If you're proposing a deal, you're opening a table to seek mutual value. So why are you devaluing yourself? If what you're doing is that urgent, I'll give you honest advice. Get a grip. If you push things that forcefully, backlash is inevitable. But you're pushing things quite forcefully yourself. Do you think I'm like you? How can someone in control of the situation be compared to someone hoping for another's decision? Seol, were you always this small? Seol closed his eyes tightly, exhaled deeply, and gave a respectful cupped fist salute. One more time, I'd like to propose a new deal. Will you sit back down? Are you confident this time won't be a waste of my time? Absolutely. Then I'll give you a chance. Unwi sat back down, Seol watching him silently sighed again inwardly. This man. I'd always known he wasn't normal, but maybe even that was an understatement. He had to get serious now. I want to expand the black market. You mean you want to expand the warehouse? Exactly. I intend to expand the warehouse, at least double the current size, no, 3 times or more. Unwi's gaze turned sharp once more. And what I said before, yes, it did mean we wanted to control Cheongsu Village. But knowing your personality, I'm aware you've never once even visited the black market. The truth was, by this point, Unwi had already more or less handed control of Cheongsu Village over to Chinrim. But there was a clear difference between formalizing it in writing, deeding the land, and not doing so. Selling the land was something Unwi would never do. He wasn't the type to get his nose cut off while watching. The Yangryong Bunta, more precisely, the individuals you personally designated, can have full control of Cheongsu Village and issue orders to the Chinrim members working there. Regardless of the cultivation levels of your Bunta members, I'll ensure they're given absolute obedience, with one exception. Unwi already knew exactly what that exception was. The warehouse. The Chinrim members working in the warehouse must be granted absolute freedom. They'll obey only you. Now they were finally speaking the same language. And in return, we'll guarantee you half the black market's profits. Unwi shook his head. Not enough. Then name it. Whatever it is, I'll fill the gap. 10 drops of refined azure spirit oil every fortnight, plus 5 stalks of 100-year ginseng and 1 500-year ginseng. Would Dalmata not be acceptable instead? Unwi chuckled. Then let's go with that. I feel like I've been played somehow. Fine, I accept. Deliver the elixirs and pills I mentioned by tomorrow. Understood. And I'll entrust the sale of Shinsamwa to you as well. A smile spread across Seol's lips. Of course, there will be plenty of visitors to the black market, so sales won't be an issue. However, this agreement begins only once your business is concluded successfully, young master. Unwi nodded. Seol offered a cupped fist salute and lowered his head. Next time, I'd like to play a game of Go with you. Aren't we playing already? Whether I hold black or white, we'll find out when the time comes. Understood, and before I go, I'd like to offer you a small gift. Let's see it. Seol's gaze flicked to the letter beside Unwi. He didn't read it directly, nor did Unwi ever mention its contents, but someone of Seol's caliber couldn't not know what it contained. I'll handle it for you. Unwi picked up the letter. You mean this? Yes. A small flame flared in Unwi's palm with a whoosh. The letter crumbled into ash and scattered. Seol. Yes, young master. You and I are friends. That's a relief. I was worried we might not be. But before being friends, we're both people who move for our own benefit. If either of us ends up owing the other, then that balance is broken, and the relationship won't be the same. You're speaking of balance, I see. So there's no need to say more. Is there? Seol Unwi smiled faintly. Understood. Then let's consider the matter of that letter erased, and when all this is over, I'll come see you again. With a nod from Unwi, Seol Unwi's body vanished like smoke. Unwi turned his head, listening closely. He could hear the gentle breathing of the sleeping chief steward. A sigh slipped from his lips. It seemed he would need to summon Yangso again. The rain washed over the blood-soaked earth. 4 figures N.O.V. original source, stood among the scattered corpses. Chenpeng, Seol Unwi, and Han Murin. The bodies belonged to members of Jeogan's Hong family caravan. Naturally, the warriors, merchants, and porters who had accompanied them were among the dead. No exaggeration, they had truly slaughtered every last one. Chenpeng stared down the mountain path and spoke. Get ready. The last caravan should be arriving soon. They had long since surpassed the 100 kills Unwi had asked for, but none of them intended to stop. Once a blade is drawn, it must see its end. They'd followed the original route to the letter. All that remained was the destruction of the caravan from Huiyang sword sect. Then it would all be over. Once they returned, Unwi would surely praise them. That alone kept them going. The current time was Myosi. Between 5 and 7 am daylight was beginning to break. They had to finish this quickly and return to Yangryong. But strangely, the caravan wasn't showing. Did we get the timing wrong? Chenpeng scratched his head and let out a sigh. Time passed and kept passing. This wasn't good. No matter how hard it rained once the sun was up. Someone would come snooping. We should pull out. He was just about to say it when a torchlight appeared in the distance. It was the caravan pushing through the rain. A relief. Chenpeng began walking forward, and the others followed. But the closer they got, the more something felt off. There's only one wagon. No carts, no porters. Chenpeng raised his hand. Everyone froze in place. Something's wrong. Seol Unwi and Han Murin all felt it. Something had gone very wrong. As they stopped, the wagon did as well. The coachman stepped down and slowly began to walk toward them. Only then did his black robe become clearly visible. Embroidered in crimson over his chest was a single character, Chinese letter, flame. Everyone froze in shock, but none more than Han Murin. Crimson flame. In this vast martial world, only one sect embroidered that symbol over the right chest. Hondo, Mei Yamgung. Han Murin's eyes began to blaze. If Seol hadn't grabbed him by the shoulder, he would have drawn his sword and rushed in. But that would have been a mistake, a very serious mistake. The man lifted his head and his gaze was frigid with each step he took. Ashes scattered across the ground. Only Seol among them recognized who he was. Black Flame Demon Beast Wurin. The martial force of Hondo Mei Yamgung was centered in its elite Meiyam Pavilion, divided into 4 grand units. This man was the commander of the Mars unit, and his cultivation stood at Transcendence Realm. I came because the air reeked of blood, and sure enough, it was you. His voice was low, calm but brimming with confidence. The 4 of them stood frozen. This wasn't merely a martial artist. He was a disaster incarnate. Had they placed too much faith in their intel? Why in the world was the Mars unit's commander of Hondo Mei Yamgung here, and alone? At that, well, I can't say it makes much sense. But thanks to you lot, I've got a lovely gift to bring back to Li Jakium, so I'm not complaining. He chuckled to himself. Chenpeng was the first to raise his sword. Ho, you draw your blade. Do you even know who I am? I don't. Even if you don't, surely you can feel the aura of someone in the Transcendence Realm, can't you? I can. Are you insane? Doesn't matter if you're Transcendence or whatever. A blade in the neck kills just the same. Doesn't it? That is true. You're not wrong, huh? You're a funny one. Haven't seen someone like you in a long time. Chenpeng grinned. You've got the feel of a two-son, two-wise cultivator. I like your guts and your confidence. Almost makes me want to drag you back to Hondo Mei Yamgung. But let's see what you're made of first. Before he finished speaking, black flames erupted from Wurin's body. This wasn't just demonic fire. It was the culmination of Wurin's decades of training in demonic flame art, a technique called Black Flame 3 forms. First form, Flame Gorge. Black fire surged from both his hands, even under the pouring rain. It was untouched naturally. At the Transcendence Realm, cultivators could manipulate natural energy. The higher the realm, the more control they had over its essence. A little rain couldn't disrupt Wurin's natural energy. The demonic fire twisted and writhed like a living creature as Wurin lunged forward. His target, Chenpeng, sensing the threat. Chenpeng gathered all his energy into his greatsword and swung hard. Final form of 1,000-kill wolf snow slash, piercing Starquake. It clashed directly with the flames, but instead of being extinguished, the fire engulfed him. Q! Chenpeng was driven back, sliding across the ground as he lifted his head. In an instant, his entire internal energy was depleted, and Wuren looked at him with a curious expression. Your spiritual power is far greater than expected. It was a genuine remark of admiration. I wonder what kind of monster you'll grow into. For now, wait your turn. A smile curled on Wuren's lips as he tilted his head back. Whoosh, a blade passed just over his face. Wanyang, precise and quick, but too linear. Before Wuren could react further, his eyes widened. Another sword came at him. He stepped back and twisted aside. Whoosh, Han Muren's sword pierced the spot where his heart had just been. There wasn't a scratch on Wuren's body. His robe hadn't even been torn, but his eyes were still wide, because ... demonic fire. Are you a disciple of the palace? The flame Han Muren had unleashed was unmistakably that of Hondo Meiyamgung, and it was impressively pure. Not something from Two Sun Two Wise, but rather from Five Dragon Phoenix Star. Now that he thought of it, your face looks familiar somehow. But Wuren didn't get to finish the thought. Wanyang and Han Muren both slashed at him. Thunk, thunk, Wuren caught both blades like they were sticks. Then fire began to crawl down their swords. KH! Cries of pain echoed as Wuren released their weapons and stepped back. A snake-like blade cut through the air. Jusoa, look at this. Isn't this a technique from Saljiaman? He kicked at the incoming blade. Boom, with a thunderous crash. Jusoa staggered. Wuren's fist slammed into her face. Crack! She slammed into the ground. Her black hat flew off and the veil attached to it tore open. Wuren saw her face and licked his lips. So it is you, thousand-handed beauty. Jusoa said to be the closest to the most beautiful in the world. And it seems the rumors were true. Jusoa wiped the blood from her forehead and forced herself upright. That one exchange made things crystal clear. Not everyone in this world could be like Unwi. They wouldn't survive this. She sent a telepathic message to the Bunta members behind her. Run, now, but none of them moved. Hadn't they learned from Unwi? There were things more important than death. When walking the chosen path, danger was inevitable. Overcome it. Or die, that was all. Had they bent or held firm, had they walked without shame, that was what mattered. I said run, Jusoa shouted, but they merely stood by her side. Each of them picked up their fallen weapons. Wuren burst into laughter at the sight. What a cute little bitch. The ones behind you have loyalty, personality, even talent. And one of them's clearly from the palace. It's a shame to kill such fine specimens. Jusoa smirked. Blood dripped from the corner of her lips. I am kind of cute, but my body's even better. You're not planning to kill me easily. Are you? Wuren's eyes widened. Well now, you really are a crazy bitch. Yes, I'm a crazy bitch. Her legs trembled, but she held her ground with willpower alone. Slowly, she ran her hand through her hair. The gesture had a strangely seductive quality. Play with me and let the others go. I'm not skilled, but I'll do my best. Wuren snorted. Don't spout shit. Why should I do that? If I kill you all, I'll have more to bargain with when I return to Lee Jakium. He stepped closer. And besides, I don't eat things with thorns. Really? That's right. Wuren's smile turned glacial. Though if you remove the thorns, I can manage to eat it. In this case, he reached toward Jusoa. If I tear out your eyes and sever the meridians in your limbs, then lay you down and kill the rest, wouldn't that remove all your thorns? That way I could devour you quite nicely. Black flames rose from Wuren's hand, flicking toward Jusoa's face like a viper's tongue. Jusoa closed her eyes. She was prepared for death. It happened in a flash. Wuren's hand reached toward her eyes. The black fire nearly grazed her skin. Then Wuren jerked back. A faint but sharp sound of air splitting came from below his hand. A sword. He immediately withdrew his arm and leapt backward. His instincts warned of danger. When Jusoa opened her eyes, ice crystals were scattering through the air. The pouring rain melted the frost, soaking the robes of a man. A drenched cloak, the man's back strangely familiar. Impressive. With that brief praise from Unwi, the Bunta members nearly collapsed from sheer relief. You stood your ground against a Transcendence Realm enemy this time. In truth, Unwi had arrived quite some time ago, precisely when the Black Flame Demon Beast Wuren began confronting them. You were afraid, but did not flee, despairing yet did not abandon hope. His voice was calm, yet held a storm within. It pierced the downpour and reached every ear. Jusoa could feel it. Though Unwi's gaze was fixed on Wuren, his awareness was spread across all the Bunta members. Every being makes a choice when faced with fear, flee, or confront. His attention shifted to Han Muren. The faint demonic flame had not died down. It burned stronger. Fear itself is not shameful. What is shameful is yielding to it and abandoning one's path. The torrential rain could not drown out Unwi's voice. It rang clearly, even in Wuren's ears. In Yangryong, you once abandoned your duty, but today, even before the shadow of death, you did not halt your steps. Wuren folded his arms as if watching a spectacle. Unwi continued without pause. To those who rely on destiny, what is fear? Merely another mountain to be overcome. True strength, it is not the sharpness of your blade, nor the depth of your inner energy, nor the height of your cultivation. Unwi's gaze settled. His heart beat faster, blood surged through his veins. True strength is the refusal to break your will, even if you lose everything. Today, you have shown that strength. All the Bunta members fell to their knees. Despite the presence of a master in the Transcendence realm, their hearts were at peace. Unwi had once told them that with him there would be nothing in this world to fear. As they all bowed their heads, Unwi spoke. Raise your heads. You are no longer those who abandoned their duty. You are now ones who know how to find their path even in darkness. He turned away. A faint smile touched his lips. I forgive you. Bunta Lord, fall back. As the Bunta members withdrew in unison, a slow clap echoed. Unwi turned his head. It was the black flame demon beast, Wuren. Ha, what fine words, I like them. I really do. I'm honored to hear that from you, senior. Unexpectedly, Unwi's tone was polite. Ice crystals, fluid movement, and you didn't even bother hiding your face under a black veil. That ash-gray hair. There's a brat from the polar reaches of Snow Mountain Palace who said to play an excellent game of Go. That's you, isn't it? Seolson Magan, Seol Unwi. And you, senior, must be the commander of the Mars unit of Hondo Meiyamgung, Black Flame Demon Beast Wuren. Ha. Correct. Allow me to greet you properly. I'm Seol Unwi, Bunta Lord of Yangryong. Sure, I'll accept that. But in the next instant, Wuren's gaze turned ice cold. But you've made quite the mess. Hard to let it slide. You mean me? You've wiped out 5 caravans already. And here too, I owe Lee Jackium a debt. I can't just close my eyes and walk away. A peculiar smile curled Unwi's lips. You speak as though you're asking for something. They say you're good at Go. Seems the rumors are true. Unwi wasn't an idiot. From the moment he received the letter from Jang Seok of the Beggars' Union, he'd seen through everything. Geogen's Lee Jackium clearly intended to dominate this region under the name of the Sashan Alliance. But that alone wasn't enough. They weren't the Martial Alliance, nor the Central Blood Sect. They hadn't clashed with the Sashan Alliance and could be reasoned with. Moreover, it had to be someone with personal ties to Lee Jackium, and someone whose sect was ambitious about expanding territory. Hondo Meiyamgung. Unwi asked, is it Bongni? Have you planted spies? Unwi shook his head. It's simple. For Hondo Meiyamgung to devour Yangryong directly would carry too much risk. But Bongni, that's a different story. Because Shinsamgak is in front and Yangryong is beyond that. Yes, more importantly, Bongni lies within Martial Alliance territory. If the Sashan Alliance clears it out, it'll become a power vacuum. And if a branch family like Hondo Meiyamgung swallows Bongni, they'll only need to keep the Martial Alliance in check. That's a bit contradictory. By your logic, wouldn't it make more sense for us to take Yangryong directly? If we capture you and trade your life to the everlasting Snow Palace, things would go much more smoothly. Unwi gave a short laugh. Why pretend not to know what you clearly do? Beneath Bongni are 2 counties, and beyond that lies Jingan Fortress. Castle Magistrate Songhak is someone even the Martial Alliance hesitates to provoke. And everyone knows the Palace Lord of Hondo Meiyamgung and Songhak were fellow students at the Blue Gate Academy. And Songhak has a problem, taxation. As you well know, neither the Martial Alliance nor the Sashan Alliance pays taxes. But Hondo Meiyamgung would be different. To deepen ties with Songhak, you'd offer a certain tax share. And that would create a situation the Martial Alliance couldn't touch. With the Imperial Army of Yang Empire, Hondo Meiyamgung, and even the Sashan Alliance involved, the Martial Alliance would stay silent. And Hondo Meiyamgung would slowly expand its reach through Bongni, eventually becoming the top among all branch sects. At this moment, Wuren didn't feel admiration. He was shaken to the core. You really are. Dangerous? I'll take that as a compliment. No, you shouldn't. Someone like you. He trailed off. He couldn't say it aloud. That someone like him holding the reins of the everlasting Snow Palace would elevate its power beyond imagination. Unwi planted his sword in the ground. Regrettably, Senior, you went missing while en route to meet Lee Jackium in Geogen. Hondo Meiyamgung will search for N.O.V. original source you, but find nothing, because there won't be a single witness. Ha! They might learn that Yangryong's Bunta members were involved in disrupting Geogen's trade routes, but they won't be able to tie it to anything else. No matter how hard they dig, it will all come back to one conclusion. A conclusion? Yes, that in a chaotic world, yet another tragic incident has occurred. As you know, the dead don't speak. That's what's about to happen. Unwi brushed his hair back. Ha! His breath dispersed into the air. He had killed many in the harmonization realm, but strictly speaking, the gap between harmonization and transcendence was immense. It typically took 4 harmonization cultivators to handle a single transcendence master. That's the difference between those who barely touch nature's energy and those who fully command it. So this was unavoidable. Jusoa, yes, block the road. If anyone approaches, no matter who it is, take their head. Understood. Chinpeng, guard the side path along the transport route. Wanyang, lie in wait in the thicket above. And Han Murin. At Unwi's call, Han Murin, who had been glaring at Murin with burning eyes, turned to him. The moment he saw Unwi's calm face, peace returned to him. His demonic flame died down. Observe carefully. Learn the weaknesses in Hondo Mei Yamgung's flame techniques. Yes, what you witness here today must never be spoken of outside. Even Murin furrowed his brow. You're taking your time preparing. Unwi ignored him. Stay silent. It'll be better for you too. He didn't wait for a reply. That was only right. He had no intention of ever using this again, but today was an exception. The tremor began from his Danjian and spread through his body. Blood demon heaven-piercing art. This was the second time since its first use in Seolap. The vibration shook through his entire form, his blood energy surging. Spreading from his core, it filled his entire body. First gate. Bloodgate's breath. The constraints over Unwi's body loosened like falling chains. His eyes gleamed brighter. Even his breath disturbed the air. Murin's eyes widened. You... Wait. That's... Unwi met his gaze squarely and murmured. Second gate, blood body yellow shift. The blood energy that enveloped his body began to seep outward. It was clearly visible, even to the naked eye. It resembled a dragon rising, its presence overwhelming. Ordinarily, a cultivator in early manifestation realm shouldn't be able to open the second gate, but Unwi could. Hyo Hyonggi wasn't ordinary internal energy, nor nature energy, nor heaven-earth spiritual energy. It was something closer to the origin of Qi itself. At that moment, Murin felt it, that he absolutely had to kill the man in front of him. He didn't know how the blood demon heaven-piercing art could possibly be used, but having seen it with his own eyes meant one thing: he had encountered a secret. It was either die or kill. There could only be one future now. He stamped his foot. A massive surge of demonic flame twisted around his arm. Black flame's 3 forms, blazing assembly sweeps heaven. Through the downpour, the enormous swirl of black flame coiled violently and rushed toward Unwi. The range extended dozens of jang wide. But to Unwi, everything seemed to move in slow motion. Third gate. Bloodwind flying fright. His body became as light as a feather, and his energy so thin it was almost imperceptible. In this moment, Unwi had become both incredibly faint, yet paradoxically, overwhelmingly powerful. He lifted his foot slowly. It wasn't so much a step as it was crossing the very fabric of space itself. But Murin was certain. He had been just a little bit faster. Murin's attack swallowed the very space Unwi had been standing in. Kwaye. With an earth-shattering roar, the rain that had been pounding from the sky reversed direction all at once. Space condensed, then ballooned outward and exploded again. Kwaye. The trees nearby were uprooted, those farther off trembled violently, and the ground collapsed beneath it all. And in that instant, terror clouded Murin's eyes. What the hell? He was gone. He should have crushed Unwi's face in, but there wasn't even a trace left. How was this possible? Then, from the side, he felt a murderous aura so intense it screamed through his instincts. Murin spun around and crossed both arms defensively. He even diverted all the demonic flame he had raised into a protective barrier. It was quite literally the best decision of his life. Zzeng. A sound like the fabric of nature itself tearing apart resounded as Murin was hurled backward. His arms tingled. The demonic flame he'd raised was snuffed out like a candle in the wind, and his protective energy shattered like glass. This wasn't something a 3-harmony peak martial artist could ever produce, neither in movement nor destructive force. What the hell? Are you? Murin screamed. His voice couldn't hide his fear, and yet Unwi responded only with a short reply. I already told you, Senior. Unwi's voice vibrated the air. And then, blood-colored mist began to whirl around him like a storm. Blood Demon heaven-piercing art was considered complete when all 5 gates were opened. With Unwi's current physical state, he could open up to the 3rd gate at most. Opening the 4th would mean certain death. Even at the heaven and earth death threshold level, one had to at least be at Sky Person realm to endure it. Granted, you'd be bedridden for 10 days after, but surviving it was what mattered. In any case, for now, the 3rd gate was the limit, and he had to finish this quickly. Unwi extended his hand. The only one who realized what it meant was Han Murin, who stood nearby. He threw the sword he was holding to Unwi, who caught it midair. In that brief moment, Han Murin frowned. What was that? Telekinetic grasp? He didn't understand. The sword seemed to change trajectory slightly in the air. Was it a trick of the eye? But his puzzlement was nothing compared to what Murin was thinking. This is a conspiracy. Yes, a conspiracy. So 10,000-year Snow Palace has joined hands with Blood Origin demonic cult. Your real surname isn't Seol, it's Cheon. That's it. That's what this is. Murin began screaming at the top of his lungs. That scarecrow suddenly wakes up and humiliates the Murim Alliance's Jeongeul Yonghyun at Go. Ridiculous. Totally absurd. Who do you think of when it comes to Go? The Celestial Taoist, of course, supreme master of Murin. Even Gun Mudgel and the rest had to concede a stone or 2 to him. You must be the Celestial Taoist's hidden son. That explains why you're so good at Go. The original scarecrow Seol Unwi must have died long ago, and the Celestial Taoist sent his hidden child to 10,000-year Snow Palace. Right, that's it. And it makes no sense that Seol Unwi didn't know. He must be in on it too. This was all a plot from the beginning. Blood Cult and Snow Palace cooperating. You fucking lunatics. What do you bastards even want? The unification of Zhongyuan, the destruction of the Murim Alliance, the disbandment of the Sichuan League, the fall of Sima Outer Sect, the extermination of all Orthodox schools. What? What the hell do you want? He looked like a raving lunatic. And yet, taken piece by piece, nothing he was saying was entirely nonsensical. Unwi's transformation had been truly shocking. To someone who didn't know better, it would be natural to think he was a completely different person. So much so that even Han Murin, Wanyang, and Juso, watching from a distance, were wide-eyed as if thinking he might have a point. But Unwi had no intention of explaining, nor did he care. He simply raised the sword. The rain around him began to tremble, as if the sword itself were disrupting the very elements. Slowly, Unwi opened his mouth. I denounce the rot of Murim. It was barely louder than a whisper, yet unmistakably a chant, and it cut through the storm to reach every ear clearly. As the first line ended, Unwi's sword began to emit a faint vibration. Murin's eyes widened in disbelief. What is this? To sweep away 100 years of decay. At the end of the second line, wind rose around Unwi, but this wasn't mere wind. It was a distinct current that split the rain. The falling water began to spiral around him. Murin faltered. His revived demonic flame flickered. As someone who had reached entered spirit realm, he could tell. What Unwi was doing now was dominion. A mere 3-harmony peak martial artist was now wielding control over the natural world. Something said to be the exclusive realm of those who'd reached the heaven and earth death threshold. With the sword, I shall forge a new order. As the third line rang out, power exploded from Unwi's sword. It was a force like no other. Murin felt as though he were standing at the heart of a typhoon. The demonic flame he wielded shook violently, and even the surrounding energies fell out of his control. He had to steady his nerves. Now was the time to strike. He had to do it now, before the song ended. He leapt forward. And then, like a raging wind, I will sweep the world. The fourth line concluded, but Murin smiled. He had gotten close. He had summoned every ounce of power. Ash scattered from his eyes, black flame's 3 forms. Ultimate move, demonic flame, iron blood, divine fist. His fist, wrapped in black flame, became one with the force of nature itself, as it swallowed the entire space around Unwi. It was more precise, more explosive than before. In that instant, Murin was certain of his victory. And Unwi's sword, which had been held to the side, moved, from upper right to upper left. As the blade shifted, the surrounding energies moved with it. It met Murin's fist, ZZZENG, and detonated. Gah! Murin's scream was swallowed by the blast as his body was hurled high into the air, then slammed into the ground. Unwi walked forward, slowly but with certainty toward Murin. With each step, blood-red energy swirled violently around him, to sweep away all that is old. As the final line flowed out, Murin's body lifted off the ground, as if invisible hands of wind had raised him up. He hadn't imagined it. If one could control the surrounding energies fully, not just telekinetic grasp, but true dominion, this technique was certainly possible. Wurin frantically gathered flame to defend himself, but the wind formed of blood energy extinguished it like a candle. This can't be, this can't be. Unwi's sword traced a circle. Along its path, a blood dragon formed. It descended on Wurin. Gigi, his screams echoed as skin and shards of bone were torn and shredded. Please. Spare me, his plea reached Unwi. But it was a wish that would never come true. This was Murim. Unwi's sword moved once more, as if cleaving heaven and earth. It passed through Wurin's body in a single arc, Kwa-A-A-N-G. With the explosion, Wurin's body shattered into thousands of pieces. Flesh, bone, and entrails scattered in every direction. Heaven-defying vast sword. Second verse, soul-chasing Gale art. Unwi flicked the blood degrees N-O-V-E-L-I-G-H-T degrees from his blade. Wurin no longer existed in this world. What remained were only streaks of blood washed away by the rain, and fragments so finely shredded they resembled powder. Even if someone tried to gather them again, they wouldn't have enough for even a single toe. That was the kind of technique soul-chasing Gale art was. Unwi quietly collapsed to the ground, rain still falling on him. Han Murin rushed to his side to support him. Tower Lord, ... cough, did you see it? Yes, I saw it. What do you think? Is the weakness of demonic flame, mental discipline, bleeding? Unwi gave a faint smile. Yes, that's the right answer. Just like with all energies, the greatest weakness is always the person. Martial arts have inherent attributes and energy is the same. Tower Lord, you don't need to say more. Unwi shook his head. He had to. Han Murin had reached an awakening. He could now etch demonic flame's weakness deep into his soul. If not on this stage, if not at this very moment, he would never truly understand. ... demonic flame. Once fear reaches an extreme, it loses control and then it harms the user. That is its defining trait. Your killing intent is impressive. Don't reduce it or suppress it. Tower Lord, your killing intent is born of rage. That primal rage cancels out the flaw of demonic flame. Don't lose that nature, but control it. Only your pure willpower can make your demonic flame grow stronger. Something trickled from the corner of Han Murin's eye. Whether it was rain or tears was unclear, but one thing was certain, Unwi's heart. Thank you, truly thank you. Where in this world could there be another man like this? The place Seol Unwi now occupied in Han Murin's heart weighed heavier than anything else in the world. He would serve him, until the day this life came to an end. With trembling hands, he rummaged through his storage pouch. It wasn't that he had prepared for a moment like this, but when did the world ever go according to plan? The elixirs and medicinal herbs he had packed just in case were now exactly what he needed. He pulled them out without hesitation. 3 Biknyon Bingshimden 100-year ice heart pills, 5 drops of Osipnyon Sialsuching, 50-year snow marrow essence, 3 roots of Bingsial Yonwa ice snow lotus, and 4 roots of Hanbing Bikritcha, 100-league cold ice grass. Too much is as bad as too little, they say. But in a situation like this, too much was precisely what was needed. Back in Sialap, when he had restored his chi channels tainted by bloodlust, he had taken these, but now the quantity was far greater and so was the quality. Without a moment's hesitation, he shoved them into his mouth one after another. Blood welled up from his throat, but he swallowed it all down. If he didn't take these now, he would be bedridden for 10 NOV-8. Read more on our source days. With them, he might cut it down to just 1 or 2, so the choice was clear. He circulated the energy swiftly, purifying and restoring his contaminated blood vessels. Panting, he forced himself to stand. His insides were churning, but for now, he was holding on. Chinpeng spoke. Hey, Lord, I wasn't swayed by that old man's words in the slightest. You know I'd never doubt you, right? I know. That bastard Warren really knows how to spout crap. Saying our Lord is part of the Chin clan, what kind of bullshit is that? If he'd seen you shedding tears for your second brother, he'd have swallowed his tongue. I cried. You didn't. I don't think I did. Chinpeng's memory seemed to be embellishing quite a bit, but he didn't bother correcting him. It wasn't the first time, or even the 10th. He could let it slide. From behind, a gentle and refreshing energy entered his body. It was Wanyang. Wanyang? Yes. Ta no Lord. That's enough. But I've quelled the worst of the fire with the medicine's energy. If you and the others add your chi on top of that, it might push it beyond my control. So stop. At that, the 2 others who had been preparing to send him their energy also backed off. He rested his chin in his hand for a moment. He hadn't met Ijijiom of the Red Eyes in person, but the situation alone told him plenty. He pieced together the intel, connected people, motives, consequences. The full picture was unfolding in his mind. To be honest, he hadn't specifically suspected Hondo Meiyamgung. He had considered the external branches of Saman, or one of the 8 neutral great clans. But of all things, it had to be Hondo Meiyamgung. Worse than the who was the when. If it had been him, he'd have finalized all talks before entering Yangryong. He had killed the 2 warriors from the Sashan Alliance 10 days and 1 night ago. Ijijiom had entered Yangryong with red-eyed sect 6 days ago. And only now, a single person from Hondo Meiyamgung was heading to Red Eyes, which meant their deal was still only in the discussion phase. In that case, what he had to do was obvious. In fact, there was only one thing to do. Warren of the Black Flame demon beast never reached the Red Eyes. He had to alter the situation so no one could discern the truth. You may not understand right away, but listen well. I was never here today. What? But you all slaughtered the Red Eyes merchant convoy right here. The branch members blinked. During that time, you never saw Warren, understood? They all nodded. Then go. Go help Jusoa. Only then did they notice her walking to the other side. It was undoubtedly the convoy of Hweyoung Sword Sect. According to Beggar Clan's secret transmissions, their numbers totaled around 60. Hack. He coughed up blood. The veins beneath his skin squirmed violently, and dark, blood-like fluid leaked from the corner of his lips. Lord, at Han Murin's worried voice, he silently patted her shoulder. Tell Jusoa not to kill them all. She must make it look like she tried to wipe them out but failed. Yes, I'll tell her. You have until Handajeong. Everything must be done and you must leave this place by then. Understood? Yes. Then go. Yes, Lord. The main hall of the Hweyoung Sword Sect was magnificent. Crimson tiles and vermilion pillars that once gleamed under sunlight were now draped in darkness. Drip, drip. The sound of rainwater broke the silence. Ijijiom stared at the corpses before him without a single change in expression. They were laid out neatly, but most of them were mangled beyond recognition. Limbs severed, torsos split. These were corpses in name only. Identifying them was next to impossible. These were the 5 merchant convoys that were supposed to return to Red Eyes today. No exaggeration, this was all that was left. The money, the goods, everything they were supposed to bring was gone. Warriors, porters, and merchants, nearly 200 people. But all that returned were bodies and survivors. That's right. Survivors, 20 of them, wounded but alive. After surveying them briefly, Ijijiom turned to the subordinate standing beside him, Branch Lord Hongjajeong. You said they were placed in storage pouches, correct? Yes. The cargo from all 5 convoys would have filled nearly 20 wagons. If it all fit, it must have been a high-grade pouch. High grade, I see. Ijijiom's voice was calm, but beneath it simmered rage. As the ruler of Red Eyes, he suppressed his emotions completely. Not even the twitch of an eye or a wrinkle in his brow betrayed his thoughts. That's the power that allowed him to command even Red Eye's military governor. Master of the Hweyoung Sword Sect. A master of Ipsingyong entered the divine realm. He had acquired Yolwu Chenjol, Heavenly Inferno Formula, a secret martial art of the legendary flame sword lineage from the Age of Genesis, allowing him to wield flame freely. Lotus Heart Lord Ijijiom. Slowly he turned his gaze to a man in black official robes. It was Jinmu, Red Eyes Inspector. Ijijiom's question was brief. Report, Jinmu bowed and replied. Confirmed. There were 4 culprits, Lord. Details. Yes, based on survivor testimonies and traces at the scene, it appears 4 attackers ambushed the convoys. They are currently believed to be branch members from Yangryong. Ijijiom's eyes narrowed slightly. Proof, witnesses couldn't make out faces due to the rain, but physique and martial style matched. One was a giant wielding a massive sword. The strike zones exploded upon contact. That's Chinsal Nangxianjol, a heavenly class technique used by Yangryong's unit. Another was a woman with a slender sword using Saljiaman sword arts. Her level matched Ogi Jawan, and her technique aligns with thousand-handed beauty Ju Soa. As for the other 2, that's enough. Ijijiom raised a hand, cutting Jinmu off. But what about Warren? Jinmu's face stiffened slightly. That is the most inexplicable part, Lord. Go on. According to the supervisor of the final convoy, Lord Warren smelled blood and declared someone had made a move. He said, I'll take care of it, prepare for departure slowly. And he never returned. The convoy eventually departed and was attacked. Warren's whereabouts are still unknown. Doubt flickered in Ijijiom's eyes. A master of Ipsingyon defeated by warriors in Ogi Jawan? That's absurd. Jinmu nodded. I think so as well. What's more, something was odd at the scene. What was it? There were clear traces of Ju Soa's in her energy and sword. The ground, weakened by rain, had collapsed from her power. But Jinmu paused, taking a breath. But there were no signs of a divine realm master. It's as if Lord Warren never fought at all. Ijejeom's brow furrowed slightly, a rare and significant show of emotion. That's right, this situation was deeply strange. A master like Warren vanished. It wasn't just improbable, it was unnatural. No fight, no trace, just gone. It's as if they never encountered each other. Lord, speak. I've worked as inspector for over a decade. I've handled hundreds of cases. Based on everything I've seen, I can only conclude Lord Warren moved to confront the attackers, but disappeared before even meeting them. And Ijejeom agreed. Even if, by some miracle, the Yangryong branch members had defeated Warren and erased the evidence, they would have paid a severe price. At least one would have died or lost limbs. But all four were intact. And all four attacked the Hwayong convoys. Looking at the facts, Warren must have encountered someone else and vanished. That was the only explanation, but still, it felt wrong. Something didn't sit right. One thing bothers me. Where was Yangryong's branch leader during all this? Branch Lord Hung Jajong stepped forward. Lord, at that time, Seol Unwi was in Yangryong. According to our reports, he caused an incident at Yangryong Hall, stopped by his branch, then took his people to the Aksu mine. Any absences? Other than briefly stopping at the branch, none. Who was present at the branch? Seong Yangho. From the Beekseol Wilyongden. At that name, Ijejeom's eyebrow twitched. He was gravely injured and couldn't move, so Unwi visited to check on him. That seems to be the case. Silence fell over the room. Everyone waited for Ijejeom's next decision. He spoke slowly. Track Warren, find out why he disappeared. This, no matter what came next, had to be resolved. Making an enemy of Hondo Meiyamgung was insanity. Even the Sashan Alliance's main faction would avoid that. They needed, at the very least, an explanation for Warren's disappearance. And since Yangryong's branch lord wants to play games, let's entertain him a little. Ijejeom's eyes turned cold. He saw Seol Unwi's scheme as clear as day. Frankly, it was obvious. Why had Unwi initiated a purge in Yangryong? It was clear. He intended to unify Yangryong into a single front to prepare for what was coming. But did he know that Ijejeom had planted spies in Yangryong precisely in order to get caught? He wanted them to trigger internal strife. The pieces he had played might have been swept away, but that didn't matter. Yangryong had to be pressed, and then pressed again, so that everyone would see just how worthless the protection of everlasting Snow Palace truly was. Trust had to be shattered. Faith had to be broken. That was what it meant, to consume an entire city. Bring me everything you have on Yangryong's merchant convoys, all of it. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Unwi, the illegitimate son of Yangryong, had spared survivors instead of wiping them all out. But Ijejeom was not like that. He was fully confident in his ability to leave no one alive. The group rested briefly at Iron Gate Mountain, situated between Jeogan and Yangryong, before entering Yangryong deep into the night. They went straight to the branch, and there they saw him. Seol Unwi smiling brightly. No, it was Yangso, disguised as Seol Unwi. At the sight of him, the expressions on Ju Soa and Wanyang subtly shifted. Thinking back, Unwi really only had 3 expressions. When he let out a number N-O-V-Y-L-I-G-H-T number dry chuckle, when he was expressionless, and when he was angry. They had never seen this face of Seol Unwi beaming so cheerfully before. Frankly, it was hard to even describe. Ha ha ha, you've returned, my lord. Any problems? There were a few, but I handled them. One unusual bit of news, though. Unusual? The sects of Yangryong came back and pledged loyalty again. And that guy Shin Janghu of the Shin clan absorbed all their forces. He said he'll come by tomorrow morning to greet you. That's all. The chief steward, sleeping like a baby. He stood guard the whole time but never woke up once. Still, his breathing's steady and his chi circulation is smooth. I think he'll wake up soon. Unwi nodded and plopped down beneath the eaves. You did well. Not at all, I just did what had to be done, but... Trailing off, Yangso grinned slyly. You must be quite the expert in counter-illusion arts. The disguise was flawless. No one doubted me. Someone must have caught on. At Unwi's words, Yangso blinked in surprise and looked at him. How did you know? That was at the head of the Chenham Merchant Guild? Name was Han Seokyeon. Yes, that Han Seokyeon definitely noticed. He didn't seem ordinary. Maybe you should keep him close. I already am. Unwi gestured for him to come closer, and Yangso approached with a mildly disappointed expression. Unwi tapped a few points on Yangso's face and chest, and his appearance reverted back to his original face. Such a shame. I was getting treated like royalty. It was wild. Yangso stepped back with a chuckle. Unwi's demeanor had grown heavy again. Everyone looked at him squarely, waiting for what he would say. Slowly, as he gathered his thoughts, Unwi spoke. "You're not fools. I'm sure you all know what I'm trying to do." The events unfolding between Jeogan and Yangryong now were more than just tense. They were explosive. And each of these four had, at least once, experienced something like this before. It resembled that time between Seolap and Yangryong in more ways than one. The only difference now was the scale of the forces and the caliber of the people involved. Ijejeom of Jeogan will soon take action. Chenpeng, caught off guard by being named, Chenpeng jolted. "Why, yes, Lord? Why did Ijejeom plant spies in Yangryong sects?" Chenpeng smiled brightly. "Oh, I get that part, Lord. It's so they could stab Yangryong in the back, right? If they betray at the most critical moment, it'll cause a disaster." "Wrong." Unwi's reply was so firm that Chenpeng wondered if he'd misheard. "Ijejeom is far more cunning than you think. He didn't infiltrate Yangryong sects to stab us in the back, but to break Yangryong apart from the inside. Break it apart? He crafted a scheme he knew would be discovered." Everyone blinked. 5 days ago, no, now it's been 6, Ijejeom led the sects of Jeogan into Yangryong. At the time, he had no agreement with the Sashan Alliance, and yet he moved unilaterally. His talks with the Alliance came afterward. He struck a deal with the master of Cheolmyong Pavilion. That's how their 3rd Division ended up stationed in Yangryong. So the core question is, why did Ijejeom move? For one reason only, to plant fear in the city of Yangryong. Ijejeom's methods are always the same. He intends to weaken Yangryong's power as much as possible. Jusoa, this time you answer. Why would Ijejeom go through such trouble instead of taking a simpler route? Jusoa paused in thought, then answered. Because he wants to destroy trust. Trust? Yes, true conquest doesn't just mean taking land. It means capturing the hearts of the people. She leaned forward slightly, voice gaining confidence. Ijejeom attacked the trust inside Yangryong before he ever attacked the city itself. Now that we've purged the spies, the people inside Yangryong will start to wonder, who's next? They'll suspect neighbors, colleagues, even family. The more she spoke, the more certain she became, her voice growing stronger. And once Yangryong weakens from internal strife, Ijejeom can attack, and some will even welcome him as a savior. For example, they'll think, at least Ijejeom will bring stability. At least under the Sashan Alliance, Yangryong will be safe. A smile curled at Unwi's lips. Keep going. Jusoa took a breath and continued. He's sending the message that the protection of Seolgung is untrustworthy. He's attacking people's ideology. Yangryong hasn't been under everlasting Snow Palace's rule for long, so he judged it wouldn't take long to make that trust collapse. Unwi laughed. Not bad. Thank you. As Jusoa said, Ijejeom's target is trust, so predicting his next move becomes easy. Maybe not for the others, but for Unwi it was enough. Yangso, yes, Lord. Remain in Yangryong until this is over. Oh, may I? There are plenty of empty rooms. Allocate them as you see fit to the people you brought. Yes, I will. And Chenpeng. Yes, Lord. Bring me brush and paper. Han Murin summoned the head of Beggar Clan, Jang Seok. Understood. At that, Jusoa and Wanyang exchanged odd glances, as if thinking, why not us? You two have separate tasks. Wait for now. Before they could even blink, Chenpeng had returned with brush and paper in hand. Unwi scribbled something quickly, then handed it to Jusoa. Deliver this to Thunderblade Sword Sect's Thunderbolt Sword, Seol Unwi. Tell him to come together. She thought she'd misheard. Who? Thunderbolt Sword, Seol Unwi. You saw him, didn't you? I did, but he's with the Martial Alliance. Unwi gave a strange smile. Is that what you really think? Hurry, unless he's an idiot, he's already waiting for my letter. Scratching her head, Jusoa nodded and turned to go. As she did, Wanyang looked back at Unwi. I'll return soon. Go. Everyone moved. In that brief window, Unwi exhaled deeply and pulled out another elixir from his pouch. He had to recover quickly, faster than anyone could imagine. Thunderbolt Sword Seol Unwi stared at the letter in his hands, expression twisted with emotion. It read, They say the river seeks its own path, yet always flows to the sea. The sword you could not swing that day still remains vivid in my memory. Those who fail to act become stones on someone else's go board. The skies of Bangni have never looked grayer. Will you sink with the crumbling ship or take a new course? The decision is yours, but the consequences will belong to all of Bangni. I found a fine scabbard, but no blade to place within. Will you become the owner of that scabbard? He folded the letter carefully. In that short moment, Seol Unwi looked 10 years older. Ju Soa, was it? Yes, master of Saljiaman, a one-line transmission sect, and Yangryong's branch officer. That too, yes. His eyes moved to the woman standing beside her. You said your family name is Namgung. Is that true? Namgung Wanyang didn't answer aloud. She simply nodded. Seol Unwi was deeply curious. The former master of Saljiaman was a swordsman named Ju Chingpeng, known by the epithet Blade Demon of Saljiam. And now his only daughter was here, serving as a branch member. The Ogi Jawan level of cultivation wasn't common, perhaps only 1 or 2 per city. Even in Jeogan or Bangni, there weren't more than 10 at most. And a direct descendant of the Namgung clan, too. Why do you follow that man? Ju Soa chuckled. Do I have to answer? You don't, I'm just curious, she shrugged. Because he's worth following. Worth following, huh? And the Namgung girl feels the same? Yes, Seol Unwi let out a dry laugh. When I first met him, I thought he wasn't ordinary, but after reading this letter, he's really something else. It's like he sees straight through me. He wasn't a fool. The way things were unfolding, he could see it all. They had asked the Martial Alliance for protection and been ignored. He had already been discarded. If this was Jegel Yonghyun's decision, or worse, Gun Mudgul's, then so be it. He had to see Seol Unwi for himself. Seol Unwi stood. Let's go, I'll decide after I meet him.